Welcome to Living Truth. I'm Angela James. Together with John Usher, we invite you to dialogues designed to awaken you to truth, enlighten you to who you are, and to invite you to live a reality that you want. All right, good morning, everybody. Angela James and
John Usher.
From Living Truth. Good morning.
Yay.
Welcome. Yay. John, no more weed eaters and lawnmowers. So it's really, really cool to be able to actually hear you instead of being out. Yay. So, good morning, everyone. We are following up from our podcast and vlog from last week, where we announced to you all the opening activation. And so, John and I are going to be sharing today a little bit more about the opening activation and what it's done and meant to each one of us. So, I think, John, you want to start off with kicking us off with announcing again what the opening activation is.
So the opening activation says we now dissolve in seed, in out BND, crownsfish, cornucopia, and more in grace. And that crazy statement is even crazier when you go and look at the explanation. And it has been a very useful tool for me, and I know this is what we are talking about today, but it's been a very useful tool for me in particular about getting out of my heart and dropping into, getting out of the head and dropping into the heart.
I was just going to
say. So your 11:11 was about that. So yeah, this has been a great tool for me to do exactly that. And for you, what's your experience of the?
It's created a very significant shift for me in terms of the own inner work that I've been doing. And I mean, we do a lot of this kind of the internal workings of what makes us tick. And I'm not just talking here, I'm talking really within the heart space. And really, when we talk about the opening activation, it is all about the opening of the heart. It is about, Brené Brown talks about wholehearted living. It is about living from our hearts. And that for me is the intersection between, and this is why we have Living Truth, the intersection between the truth as I connect to my higher nature and higher being, and then being able to live it. So it's about the melding of the energies of being in the world of matter, as well as being connected to spirit, and the union of that takes place in the heart. And that's for me where the opening has really created quite a significant shift for me. It's hard to sometimes actually get to grips with explaining what it actually does. We were talking earlier this morning. One of the things that it really does focus on is energy. It isn't a statement of energy. And I know, John, you've had some real experiences with the shift that it's created for you. I know that there was a weekend specifically where you must have been in and out in BNDing, and not ad infinitum is a better word than ad nauseum. So take us through some of the energetic shift that you felt, or the impact that you feel just when we say it.
Yeah. So for me, I am an overthinker, and I have quite a critical inner voice. And it forces me to be cognizant of the issues in my life. And the irony around awareness or consciousness is that sometimes it's the problems that we have, or the root problem that we're unaware of. So as much as we talk about awareness or consciousness, sometimes I think it's just obliviousness or oblivion. And what the statement has done for me is literally, when I get into that repetitive mumbo jumbo happening in the head, the jibber jabber that just constantly rattles off in my head, and I've got this phenomenal ability to go to the worst case scenarios, which are not just not likely to happen, are probably statistically impossible to actually happen. but I have this wonderful ability to fixate on those kinds of issues. And the anxiety that generates for me can be, pretty much crippling. Being a creative soul, I'm relying on hope to kind of fuel the creativity, and the anxiety just chews away at that. So when I recognize the fact that I'm going into that pattern, I click into saying the statement and what the statement does for me. And I want to be clear about this. We also spoke about this morning. It's not the words. It's the understanding that goes with it. It's not the statement itself. It's what it alludes to. The statement for me is very energy oriented, and it brings up an awareness of the energy. And there's different phrases or phases within the statement. So like in and out is an awareness of God and everything that He is. And literally with our breathing in, the pause, and breathing out, there is an awareness of God in that. And what that statement does, what that phrase does, is it just makes me aware of that energy. And the energy shift, the energy change in me from the anxiety to peace. And when I can get the peace, how it activates the flow and the awe and wonder again, which lends itself to the creativity, has been just phenomenal. And yes, that weekend I was in and out in B&D quite a lot. The anxiety, vivaciously, continuously, obsessively, but we won't go down that road. It just absolutely changed the thinking for me. And again, not the statement, just when I'm aware of the intent that's behind each of those phrases, and not even just the knowledge of it, it's just being aware of the energy of those phrases, the shift that it then produces in me. And I'm, allowed, or I get the permission, as it were, to go into flow, to go into awe and wonder. And it's been, a tremendous experience. As an overthinker, it's been a tremendous tool for me to get hold of, take control back of the inner voice of the mind matter, and to allow peace to dominate. And your experience?
I have to say, listening to you, I wish I had this statement last year when I was going through all the crap that excuse the language, but all the crap that I was going through, because it took me a very long time I got through it, but it took me a really long time to get to the point where I don't have those overarching, paralyzing feelings of anxiety and fear anymore. For me, my experience has been really standing in my truth, and really standing in my truth. And that, if anybody wants to know more about it, listen to the 1111 on my Facebook page earlier on today. Shifting from that identity of being the corporate trainer, trying to secure corporate clients, all of those kinds of things, into truly stepping into the gifts and talents that I have been endowed with as a clairvoyant and as a spiritual psychic. It doesn't mean to say that those other roles that I play, this is also languaging you're going to find coming through more and more from both John and myself, doesn't mean to say that those roles have gone and they have been turfed out or jettisoned. It means they'll be picked up in a very different context, perhaps, or not, later on. So for me, the opening activation in terms of stepping into and really living from my heart. And it's not to say I don't go into my head, and it's not to say I don't have mind matter either. I do, and I do often, as John will attest. What we do have, though, is we have a tool to arrest going down that spiral. And that's part of the energy shift that takes place within utilizing the statement. That's the first thing. The second thing is
arrested.
It's arrested, yeah. It's like arrested development.
Yes. Like
what John alluded to also just now was the fact that when he was talking earlier on, there's a very definite unconscious competence that we all hold within ourselves in terms of the mind matter that we've conditioned ourselves to think through over and over and over, that did become how we defined ourselves, did become part of our identity. And what the opening activation does is it allows us to dissolve it. And the important component that follows on from that, which we'll be sharing in more depth on subsequent podcasts, is it allows us to seed a new identity. And I think for me, that's been the primary shift that I've noticed. And I think you'd be able to actually attest to it because you observe how it's been unfolding for me, is that the dissolution of a lot of what needed to be dissolved, a lot of that did happen last year. It's not gone. And it rears its head every now and then, as we know. But the emphasis for me has been more on the seeding of the new, of how I'm emerging. And I know that that's where you are at the moment, as you are in the process of seeding a whole new look, John. I don't want to give away too many of the trade secrets that we'll reveal later on. But so for me, if you want to really know how do I capture the opening activation, it's a transformational tool. It's a tool that allows us to transmute the old energy and to seed in the new. And it allows us to step into the contribution that we're here to make as part of the world. And it operates on an energetic level, on a cellular memory level. A lot of us bring, and I do believe in this, not everybody will, but I believe in past lives. A lot of us bring past life energies into this current lifetime. And very often those are things that we have no understanding or explanation of as to where they come from. And yet when we start to unpack the unconscious elements of what's going on, a lot of it is rooted in cellular memory. So as an energetic statement, what it's actually also doing is it's physiologically changing the way in which our bodies actually respond to the world, because it's changing it on a cellular level. And so we can't explain all of this. Created a scientific experiment for you. Not now, can't yet. I don't know whether we ever will. But what I can say is the shift, and what I can attest to is the shift that it's created for me. For me to stick my stake in the ground as a clairvoyant and psychic I can't even begin to tell you how huge that has been for me. So, it's a tool that helps us uncover the unconscious and start to become a lot more present with who we are and what our gifts are, and allows us to start to live lives of real purpose and meaning, and to truly embrace our truth and to live it.
So for me, a lot of the limitations that we have are, as you were saying, rooted in the fact that we're unaware of where they are rooted. And if you're going to spend all your time looking for the source of those things, to uncover them, to resolve them, I think you're going to spend a lifetime just, digging up. Do you know what I mean?
I have to laugh. I have to laugh at that, because that's precisely my programming up until working with. And again, without kind of negating or detracting from what you're saying, I think just to kind of put an add in here as well, is that the opening activation was as a result of John and I experiencing some of the work done by Gary Douglas Dane here, or Dr. Dane here, and Shannon O'Hara with Access Consciousness. And then there's a whole lot more besides, which we've uncovered on our own journey. So coming back to what you're saying about the unconscious stuff that goes on for all of us.
Yeah. And for me, I didn't necessarily want to get stuck in uprooting bad habits or limiting beliefs. I wanted to get busy with the process of having. I didn't want to be stuck in the identity of a scarcity. I wanted to get busy with formulating or nurturing an identity of abundance. And that's what the statement is doing for it, by rattling out the phrase. And it's not just saying the words, it is about choosing to be conscious about the energy of each of those phrases. It is nurturing the attitude or perspective of abundance. And it allows me, the mind matter takes away my options. It kind of gives me pinpoint focuses and says, this is the only option that we have. This is all that's available to us. When I've gone through the statement and I allow peace or wonder to come into my life, I kind of sit back and say, oh, look at all these wonderful opportunities. Look at all these glorious possibilities. So instead of getting stuck in a perspective, the energy shift, the energy change allows me to look at the opportunities that abound. Gives me an awareness of the potential for God to move, or for the universe to do something spectacular. And I'm now developing that expectation more and more, where previously miracles were a strange thing for me, where I'm now coming to the place where I'm saying, actually, miracles should be the norm. Manifestation should be the norm.
I think that you make an important point. There's a couple of important points that you make here. The one is abundance resides within the heart. It doesn't sit in our heads. Scarcity lives in our heads. That's just a big clunk that's gone on for me, is that we cannot access abundance unless we are connecting from the heart. It's just not possible. And I think that this is one of the misnomers where we program everybody through learning programs, and this is the 5-step easy way to make $1 million or 50,000, 150,000 Facebook followers and all of that stuff. It's all being done here. It's not being done from a place of service and contribution, which comes from the heart. That's the one thing. The other thing that you were alluding to is around the fact that we talk about manifestation and this is really important, and not materialization. This is not a statement that is just going to go, hello, happy birthday, here you have all this stuff. And you're gonna
I wish it was.
It's a process and it's a journey. It's not about materialization, and that's a very important contrast, which again we'll talk about more on subsequent podcasts. It is about the manifestation of who you truly are as a manifestor. It's not about the end results. And I think, John, you're very pedantic about the difference between manifestation and materialization.
Absolutely. So just to have my 10 cents worth, is materialization for me is where we contrive the results. We are forcing the outcome, as it were. And I often say that we get in this world not what we pray for. We don't get what we want. We don't get what we wish for. We get who we are. And there is a huge step between using the statement and manifesting, a materialistic outcome. I'm not saying, don't have expectation for materialistic outcomes. What I'm saying is the statement is not this, as you have said, the statement is not this magic wand that's going to make the stuff appear for you. There's a huge gap in between. And that gap is the identity. That gap is who you are. So the statement for me is about actualizing energy in us for me to connect with my true self. And as you have alluded to, get into my heart and allow manifestation, as it were, to happen out of my heart. Because that's where we manifest from. We manifest who we are. So let's pay attention to who we are rather than the materialistic stuff around us.
There's another
materialism for me. One more point, and I'll give it to you. The materialism for me is frustrating, because I think we forget. We look at this world and we look at the cars and the houses and the lifestyles that populate so many vision boards. And I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying it's a bit limited. That for me is when we get fixated on the fact that we are living in a temporal world. We are not temporary beings. We are eternal beings. And we need to be working on and developing that eternal state for ourselves. And that's what the statement is helping me do, is focus on me being eternal rather than this limited materialistic being.
Which is a great lead into part of how the statement has formulated almost itself. I mean, we've brought stuff through ourselves, but it's actually formulated itself. And that is, and this is one of the big contrasts of the work that we're doing, is it's very, very linked to natural law. It's very, very linked to the world of spirit. And when John talks about manifestation, the spiritual law is the law of involution. And when we talk about, so that would be spirit coming into matter. And when we're talking about matter going into spirit, we're talking about ascension and the ascension energies. So there's a very strong, very deep spiritual connotation on every level. And that's also why it's energetic to the work that we have been tasked to bring out into the world, I guess. And for me, and I know I can't speak for you, but I know that your sentiment is exactly the same. This is very much God-directed work. This is not just about, and the energy of God, universe, cosmos, whatever you want to call it, is very central to the opening affirmation, because God, my belief is that God does live in our hearts. It's also around the fact that, and I'm breaking no bones, I really am sticking my sword into the ground today, that this is part of a spiritual journey, and it is a process, and the manifestation is not instant. It's not for the faint-hearted. It's not for people who want to live a materialized world. It's for those who are dreamers, truth seekers, light workers, and wisdom keepers. So some final comments from you, because we are running on 20 minutes. I know we're trying to keep this within the kind of 15 to 20 minute time realm. So with John having frozen, what I'm going to then do is just end us off. If you're wanting to know more about the opening activation, please find us on Living Truth on Facebook. Both John and I are posting our own experiences within our own spaces. John is www.mindmattermatters.com, and I'm sitting with Angela. It's at the moment still angelajames.co.za, and still taking a little bit of time to get it to angelagalejames.com. That's part of my new identity. So thanks for watching. Much love and light, and join us as we contribute to the opening and the activation of living wholeheartedly. And a great big shout out to Brenda Brown for Gifts of Imperfection, to Gary Douglas, Dane here, and Shannon O'Hara, who've all contributed to this consciousness that's emerging from, to, and through us. God bless everybody. Join us as we learn to, well, not we are yet, but as we learn to live more and more within the truth that as we know it and as we see itself to be, and as it manifests through and to and through us. God bless everybody. Thanks for watching. Thank you for joining us. Our goal is to carry a message of purpose and meaning to those who are seeking to be, do, and have a full, joyous, happy, and abundant life. If you know of any dreamers, seekers, leaders, light workers, and wisdom keepers, please feel free to share our podcasts with them. We would love it too if you would leave a 5-star review on this channel. Visit us on angelajames.co.za and John Usher at mindmattermatters.com.